Good morning everyone, Jason here, and today we will be continuing with the character design that we started last week. In this video I will cover some tips on how to create different character color schemes. For this particular video I am going ahead with this design. It was chosen by my wife and you can't really go against her. And before starting to color it, I've actually cleaned up the sketch so that it makes coloring a little bit easier. Typically in a game production environment, you need to produce several different color options, and sometimes these color options can be used in the future as character skin options. And because of that, sometimes there's no time to really come up with unique color schemes. And one way to get color inspiration is to view existing artwork done by other artists. And for that, I like to go to ArtStation for reference. Now usually I will just look at the image from ArtStation and try to pick up the colors in Photoshop. But I understand that for beginners, it can be a little bit hard to see the individual colors from a painting. So what you can do is to open up the artwork in Photoshop, go to Filter, Pixelate, Mosaic to turn the artwork into a pixelated form. This instantly creates a color palette based on the image for your own use. Now just as a reminder, do this only if you are short of time, and try to learn from this practice so that you can create your own color schemes in the future. The process that I'm about to show you takes more time to generate your first color scheme, but it is much faster for subsequent schemes. For me, I don't like to create a flat color scheme. I prefer to add in a little bit of shadow, a little bit of ambient occlusion, a little bit of lighting to make the character more appealing. So I start by selecting the entire character with the lasso tool and filling it with a single color, usually a darker tone. Next, I will isolate individual parts of the character where I want to paint it with one single hue. For example, the blue is in its own layer and the red is in its own layer. And I'll continue to do so for each individual hue. As I mentioned earlier, I am not painting these layers with just a flat color. Adding in ambient occlusion, shadow, lighting, etc. to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. When choosing your reference image for the color scheme, try to find images that have 2 to 3 main hues. The problem with too many hues is that it will result in the design looking like, I don't know, a Power Ranger Megazord, for example. Too colorful, not sure where to look at when you view the design. No point of focus. Another tip is to try and limit areas with highly saturated hues, because if the entire character is very saturated, again it's very difficult for the viewer to find focused when they look at the character. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the first color scheme will take the longest as you are making decisions on where to place each individual color. For this example, I spent about an hour to create the first color scheme. The design of this character is a little bit more detailed, so perhaps that's why it took so long. And if you notice, at this stage I didn't zoom in to the canvas at all. Again, remember that this is not a final painting, just a concept art, so it should be relatively fast. So once you have painted in the individual colors on the character, you can affect the brightness of these colors by using a curves adjustment layer. You can also add additional lighting using a color dodge layer. And with that, we are done with the first color scheme. Moving on to the next one. Once the first color scheme is generated, it is easy to pump up more color schemes. So the first thing I will do is to find another reference image that I would like to base the colors off. And then I'll go to the individual layers and do a hue adjustment by going to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, or you can press the shortcut Ctrl U. In the dialog box that pops up, you will notice 3 different sliders for the 3 qualities of color: hue, saturation, and lightness, or some people call it value. As you slide along the sliders, you can change the individual properties of the color information that is within that particular layer. So for instance, if we slide along the hue slider, you can change the color of that layer itself. And sometimes you find it hard to get the particular color that you want. You might need to check on the colorize box that you can see on the lower right hand corner. And there you have it, easy peasy, 3 color schemes in under 90 minutes.